Hi, Heather here from Creativity by Heather B. Today I'm going to create a thank you graduation card, the one I'm actually showing you now. I'm going to use some yellow heat embossing, and I'd also created another one using some blue heat embossing that I'm actually not going to create on the video. It was kind of one I was experimenting with, and I actually really liked the way it came out, but I will probably make more of the one that I'm going to show you today. So I'm going to start out with my card base, which is Neenah 80 pound, and it is cut to an A2 size card base. And I'm going to be using a graduation cap as the background that I'm going to emboss. And the one that I'm using is from Lawn Fawn's Hats Off to You set. And the reason that I like this one so much better than some of the other ones that I had was the size of it. I have an Avery L set that has a hat, but I like this one that it was larger. So I'm going to be using Versamark ink to stamp it, and I have the smaller cube that I'm going to be using. I also have the larger one. However, with just doing the smaller image and doing it over and over, I decided just to use the small cube. So I'm using my powder tool just to make sure that the embossing powder only sticks where I want it to and kind of get rid of some of that static. And I will do it halfway down, and then I will stamp and then turn it over and stamp the other side. So I'm going to speed it up as I'm stamping this. I'm just randomly stamping them. Some of them are upside down, some of them are going off the page. The thing that you have to be careful with this is to make sure that you're not overlapping where you're stamping, because it is a little bit hard to see. So you'll notice that sometimes I'll pick the paper up and kind of move around a little bit just to see where they are, where my stamping is, so I'm not overlapping. So I'm going to turn it over and use my powder tool in the bottom part and continue to stamp at the top. So at this point, I'm not really sure if I'm going to use the card as horizontal or vertical, so I'm just kind of stamping in all different directions, and once I heat emboss it, then I'll figure it out. So I'm using the Ranger yellow, and I am heating up my heat gun, and I will tell you, I have found that it is so worth to spend the extra money on the Wagner heat gun. I had some of the other ones and they just didn't work well, so it's definitely worth it. So I get a little bit of embossing powder, and what I like to do is just take a thin paintbrush and go through and just kind of loosen it up. You don't really even have to get it, like knock it completely off, just loosen it up and then tap the card, and that excess will usually fall. So I'm going to heat set everything, get all that embossing powder melted. And by the way, if you haven't figured out, my son's school colors are the yellow and blue, which is what I'm using here on the card. And we are a big Steeler and West Virginia fans, so this is one of my favorite embossing powders. I love the Ranger embossing powders, although I will say the Nuvo has some great white embossing powder. I haven't tried any of their others, but I love their white. So I had a little area that I was just, didn't completely get heat embossed, so I was able to just kind of brush a little bit of it off. I'm going to clean up my my embossing powder. And what I'm pulling out next is a trick that I learned from watching a Jennifer McGuire video, and I don't use Swiffers to clean my home with. However, she used it to pick up glitter and embossing powder, and it works fabulous. So I went to Sam's and bought a large box, as you can tell, and you'll see 2 swipes and it's all on the Swiffer. It's great. It's so easy to clean up the mess. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to put this on my card base. My card base is Neenah 110 Solar White cardstock. I'm just kind of moving it around. There's a bottom part on the corner that was a little bit thicker, so I decided to put that down at the bottom, just what I was pointing to. So I'm going to use my ATG gun, and I will tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with this ATG gun. I love it when it works, and I hate it when it doesn't. And unfortunately, for me, it just works less than it doesn't. So usually I will use a Tombow adhesive runner, but I had pulled it out today, and so I was using it for the video. And I'm going to put my background on. So once I get this on, I'm going to put the sentiment on, which is thank you. And I'm using I've got some ink on it. So I'm going to use a mono sand eraser. Another thing, if you don't have one of these, get one. They are so inexpensive. I had some ink on it. I just lightly used the eraser on it and the ink was gone. And it was a Blue Jay Lawn Fawn ink. So it was a dark ink that came completely off. I got this from Simon Says Stamp. I think it was under $3. So worth it. So the dies that I'm using are from Concord 9th, the All About You, and this is from their May release. And on my blog, I do have the link to get the entire set. And I will tell you, Concord 9th the past couple months has really moved up as one of my favorite stamp companies. I love that you can buy the releases in bundles. So this U die will actually cut out the frame along with the word U. So I just die cut it in 2 different colors. I'm also using their 3 triple hearts that you can put right down the center of the O that comes with this set. So I'm going to take the yellow U and just put the blue frame around it. And they weren't die cut together since they're different colors, so they weren't wanting to stay. One of them was bending up a little bit, so you'll see me kind of messing around with it. And I also have my Ranger craft mat out because of the stamping for the embossing, so I didn't have my grid, so I was trying to line everything up. So once I have it lined up, I'm actually going to keep the frame and the word U together, and to adhere them down, I'm going to use the Xyron Creative Station Light, and you'll see me grab for it here in a moment. And this is one of those things that I absolutely love, but quite honestly, it's on a shelf and I forget that it's there. So the first card I created, I used Multimedia Matte, Ranger Multimedia Matte, and just put the word U and then put the frame around it, and this was so much easier. I ran these together through the Xyron Creativity Station, and it came out even though they weren't stuck together because they both had the sticker. They go on so much easier. So I'm running it through, and I'm going to cut the end of it. And then after I run something through my Creative Station, I like to flip it over and take my bone folder and just run it over the back just to make sure that all that adhesive is stuck. And if you've ever used one of these machines, whether it's this one or the small Xyron, sometimes that sticky will get in between the letters. So I'll show you what I do to get rid of that. And I'm actually pulling it off easy because remember that frame and the word U are not actually connected. They just both have the sticky. So I'm going to put that down. And I've got some of the sticky. So I'm going to use my adhesive eraser, which is another inexpensive tool that just makes your life so much easier. And just get the little bit of sticky out around the Y and the U. And then I'm also going to use my powder tool. And my poor powder tool has seen better days. So I'm going to take the word thank and run it through as well. So in the original card that I showed at the beginning, I actually cut a piece of fun foam to raise up the word thank. But it's so delicate that it was honestly just so much extra work that I liked it raised, but it just really, the amount of work it would be to do all of the cards that I need to create, it just really wasn't worth it. So I'm just going to adhere it down without raising it and giving it any dimension. And it still came out okay because the U is kind of thicker, so it worked. And then of course the embossing. So with the delicate words like this, you'll tend to get more of that stickiness in between the letters. So what I like to do is take my Tim Holtz poker tool and just kind of run it through the inside of the letters just to kind of get some of that sticky, and then also take my powder tool over top of it once I get it down. So I've got that on, and I'm going to take my little hearts and I'm going to add blue hearts to each one. Use my eraser, telling you that thing. There are so many little crafting tools I found, mostly from other crafters. Thank you so much for your tips. They're so inexpensive that just make what could be so frustrating so much better. So I'm going to use glossy accents, and I've moved my little cement box over. So this is a jewel picker, and Jennifer McGuire, I got this from one of her videos, just love her. And this thing is another inexpensive tool. Simon Says stamp, I think it was like $6, and it picks up sequins, any little thing. It's got a thick end and a more thin, delicate end. It is wonderful. So I'm using glossy accents to adhere the little hearts, and quite honestly, I typically would not use glossy accents for this. I would usually use probably Ranger medium matte, excuse me. But I have the smaller tip on it, the fine tip, and it actually bent on me today. So I've got some more order, but they haven't arrived yet, which is why I'm using the glossy accents. So I'm adhering each of the blue hearts down using my tool. And that little box that they're in, that is a cement box. It has a lid to it. And I got that at the Container Store. And I'm telling you, if you have a Container Store near you, they are amazing. I can go in there and just wander. I found so many neat little boxes and storage ideas for my craft stuff, and that's definitely one of them. I got that one on clearance. So I've got my third heart on, and you'll see I'm kind of using the poker to try to arrange them, and I realize once I get it on that they're not down the center of the O. And my OCD is not going to allow me to leave them there. So I kind of look at it and it's not going to work. So I use the poker tool and start lifting each little heart up and moving it over. The first one I'm able to get off successfully and just reposition it back on. However, the second and third one, I ended up just having to scrap and just pulling two more out of the cement box, which was fine because, as you can see, I cut several of them. So I'm gonna pop that second one up. This really is a very simple card to make. It was a little time consuming just because of the embossing and really kind of having to take your time, which is why I sped it up to make sure that you're not overlapping. But I love to use the Versamark and the embossing to create backgrounds. It kind of gives you a way to create your own unique background. And I'm popping that third one up and moving it over. So once I get that third heart on and I've got them in the center, I'm going to take a Wink of Stella pen and go over the word you, the hearts, and also up on the thank you. I am going to take my adhesive eraser and just get off a little bit of adhesive that was left on the bottom of that heart. The good thing with the glossy accents, some of it that was on there will dry clear, and I'm putting the Wink of Stella on it so the shimmer won't really stand out. So I'm going to add my Wink of Stella because, you know, everything needs a little sparkle. And I kind of go back and forth between the Wink of Stella and the Spectrum Noir. I do have both of them. I find that the Spectrum Noir, it gives a little bit more shine, but it does tend to come out a little thicker sometimes. And I've had it ruin some of my die cuts and things that I was going over. So I kind of tend to stick towards the Wink of Stella. I will occasionally grab for the Spectrum Noir. They're both great that I just have had, and I don't know if it's just the pens that I've gotten or if it's just the way that the pens are made. So after I get my Wink of Stella on, I'm going to take some glossy accents and just go back over the hearts. When the glossy accents is dried on the blue heart, they stand out so much. It almost looks like it's some enamel little hearts that have been put on. So I just put the glossy accents on those hearts. So the card needed something else, and I decided I wanted to add some Nouveau drops. These are the crystal drops, and this is actually the dandelion yellow. And you'll notice once my left arm gets out of the way there, the lid that's sitting off to the side, whenever I get a new Nouveau, I will take the lid off and put a little dot on the top of the lid and let it dry. So that way as I'm looking over at them, because I keep them in fingernail polish holders, I know exactly what the color looks like. It's just something that's worked really well for me. So I'm going through and I'm just doing the circles on top of the hats. Just going to give it a little bit more dimension, and that is our finished card. Thank you. Be sure to check out my blog and leave comments. I always love hearing your tips. Thank you. Have a great day.